Hello everyone, my name's Mary. I graduated from college 2 years ago with a degree in technology, and to save money to buy a small apartment of my own. I've been living with my parents, and when I decided to surprise them with a present to show my gratitude to them for letting me stay at their place, they threw it in my face in the most disrespectful way ever. Let me give you a little context first. I grew up in a very biased household. My mom, Pamela, and dad, and Philip, always preferred my brother, Danny, over me. They had a lot of trouble conceiving me, and when he was born, he was considered their miracle baby, while I was an unplanned child, and it showed in the way that they treated us. Danny was given anything and everything he ever demanded, while they barely even paid me any attention. They attended all his schools, shows, and games, and they always gave me excuses that they were busy when it was my time. They cared more about his grades, while my mother said that I would end up marrying someone anyways, so I should care less about my grades and more about my appearance. It was hard growing up in such an environment with them, and I tried my hardest to make my parents love me, but they never did. When I entered my rebellious teenage years, I shaved all my hair so that maybe my parents would show me that they at least cared about me. But my mother was just concerned that I would not get a boyfriend now, and always be dependent on them for the rest of my life. They treated me like I was a burden, and I spent my whole life looking for their approval, which was very easily given to my brother, even when he did nothing special. He didn't even get into his safety colleges, yet my parents were proud of him for going to the community college. Ugh. They would go on and on about how relieved they were that their son isn't leaving them just yet. My parents were shocked when they found out that I've been accepted into a top university while their golden child was doing some classes at a nearby community college. They weren't happy that I was going to outshine their favorite, but I had a scholarship, so I was soon gone from the house. Since then, I barely met them, and I would come back home every Christmas. But they would be uneventful because my mother's younger sister and her family would spend it with us. The worst my parents would do is forget that I was coming, hence not having presents for me. I would smile through it, though, with my expensive presents for them that I bought for their validation and approval. I guess every time I was away from them, I forgot how they treated me, or I started to dilute how bad it was living with them, because after college I moved back in with my parents to save money for an apartment. Danny, he was still living with them at the time. He did a few odd jobs around, but never had a steady income. So, of course, it came as a surprise when I began working at the top tech company. I knew my brother was jealous of me because of this, but I also saw my parents get jealous that it wasn't their favorite son living his best life. But it was alright. I mostly worked and only had to spend the nights with him. Even on weekends, I tried to stay out. If I were dating someone, I would spend the weekends at their place so I wouldn't have to face my parents and their biased behavior on an everyday basis. And it was mostly tolerable. Like me, any stupid person, I would still try to get their approval by taking them out on dinners as a thank you for letting me stay with them. They enjoyed these lavish dinners on my penny, but never once thanked me or even appreciated me for it. Years passed by in a blur, and I started saving most of my income because I didn't have to pay the house bills. In the past few months, I've been looking for an apartment to buy, and I found a perfect apartment for me. I was so happy that it was within my budget, and I still had some savings left. I was euphoric when I got the deal. I was on cloud 9. I felt very grateful to my parents who let me stay with them for 2 years, and I wished to do something nice for them. My parents are rich enough people, but I thought that they would appreciate the thought that I put into this. I waited a week for their 30th wedding anniversary to get the car to them. Yesterday, I brought the car home to surprise them, but I knew from their faces they simply did not like my gift. My mother made a face like she ate something bitter and said that the car was way below their standard. All my excitement fell on her bluntness. My father was also not impressed and claimed that they would keep the car because it was a gift from me. I had beamed up at that, but he was eager to squash my hopes again, and he also said that it was below their standard and would only keep it as a token of gratitude from me. He even said that he would be ashamed to be seen in something this cheap. Well, I was heartbroken, and the car was not even cheap. It's a good enough vehicle, and it's new. I was very sad when they claimed that it did not meet their expectations. Like everything I've ever done in my life, I felt like they were saying to me that I did not meet their expectations. Well, I refused to go for the celebratory dinner, excusing myself, saying that I wasn't feeling very well. I knew I would not be missed much, and they left me alone for the night, and it was about 2 in the morning when I ventured downstairs in search of water and overheard my parents in the garage. They were talking to my brother, so I watched closer. I saw them clustered around the, quote, below standard vehicle that I got them as a present. My brother was inspecting the inside of the cars with such a bright smile. My father said that he loves the car and thinks it's a good vehicle, and I was very confused as to why he was saying the opposite of what he said to me. My mother nodded and said that he absolutely would love the car and thought that Danny should have it. That's when the ground shifted beneath my feet. My mother went up to my brother and told him that she loved him and that this car was a gift from them to him. After all, it was their car now, and they could do whatever with it as they pleased. Well, Danny asked them if they're sure about this. What would I say when I found out? And my father reassured him that I would not be mad because they both told me that they disliked the car earlier. So, giving a gift that they didn't like to their son, who would get used to it, wasn't really a big deal. He claimed that they liked him a lot and that he should be the one who drove such an amazing vehicle and not them. I tiptoed back to my room after that, not wishing to hear their hurtful words. I couldn't believe that they would just give away my expensive gift to their favorite child like that. In the morning, they informed me of their decision to give the car to Danny, just like they had claimed that they would give to him. We were having breakfast when Mom told me that she and Dad disliked the car greatly, but had decided to give it to their son so it would not be a waste. I had been very hurt by this, but I swallowed it up. I wasn't going to let them just leave them anyways. I've learned my lesson at last. I'm never going to crave such people's validation ever again. Guys, whatever I do, I will never be enough for them, especially compared to their little golden child, Danny. In all of their drama, I haven't even told them about the fact that I got my own apartment. I'm sure that they'll get mad that this was their least favorite child. At this point, I wouldn't even put it past them. They might even tell me to give my new apartment to their favorite son. They're such despicable people. Update number 1. Hey everyone, it's Mary again. It's been a few days since my last update where I told you how my parents gave the car I gifted to my brother after they pretended to hate it in front of me. You wouldn't believe what they demanded of me today. My brother introduced his girlfriend of 2 years to the family yesterday. Millie and my brother met at a bar and hit it off. He was adamant that we meet her. So, we went out for dinner and she seemed nice enough on the surface, talking to us politely. However, I was bored. I was just there for the obligation. I didn't want to be there at all. I wasn't impressed by her or anything, but I wasn't really the one who needed to be impressed after all. But I was shocked when my brother revealed that he wished to marry Millie. When we were home alone, he said that he was in love with her and did not want to stay away from her any longer. I had to stop myself from scoffing. Where was he planning on keeping her after marriage? His parents' house? But I didn't say anything out loud. I wasn't in the mood to talk very much to this family and retired to my room soon after. However, before I went to the office today, we had a very interesting conversation. My mother tells me that I should buy Danny's girlfriend a new car, to make up for the fact that I gave them a crappy one. I was shocked at her demand, not knowing what to say, and my mother continued that they would forgive me for being stingy with their wedding anniversary present if I gave Millie an expensive car instead. I told them that I didn't have any money, and she just looked at me with disgust and reminded me of the money I was saving for my apartment. I hadn't told them that I hadn't gotten an apartment on my own and would soon be moving out. And my mother just asked me to spend the hard-earned money I was saving on my brother's girlfriend. Well, I told them I wasn't going to do that. And my father asked me why was that. After all, they were happy to keep me under their roof, and they would for as long as I needed. All I had to do was give Danny's girlfriend an expensive vehicle. When I still did not agree to do so, that's when my mother threatened me. She tells me that she would throw me out of their house if I didn't listen to them and give them a car to Millie. Well, I was very shocked at the turn of events, so I left the house without even eating breakfast, but my mother yelled at me that I only have 3 days to think about this or to leave their home. Can you believe the audacity of my parents? I mean, how can they just demand that I spend my hard-earned savings on their golden child girlfriend just like that? Isn't that crazy? I'm just glad that I have an apartment of my own now. I had not shifted yet because I was still packing up my room. It was taking me this long because I also had no job. Now, I need to get out of there ASAP. Update number 2. Hey everyone, it's Mary again. So, 3 days ago, I told you that my parents gave me an ultimatum to either spend my savings on a new vehicle for my brother's girlfriend or leave their roof. Well, unbeknownst to them, I'd already bought an apartment with the money. However, I overheard something truly shocking yesterday. I'd spent the day buying furniture for my new apartment and putting some of my package stuff in there all day. I returned home sooner than I would have if I had gone to my office, and I was almost completely packed up, and I only needed to pack the everyday stuff. I was going to leave the next day after all, and I've even gotten a bed and couch for the new apartment. I was completely ready to move away from my toxic parents when I heard them walking back home. I immediately slipped upstairs, not wanting them to see me and cause any trouble. But their voices, it flowed upstairs, and they were talking loud, probably thinking that I wasn't home. That's when I heard my parents and brother discussing how rich Millie was. Apparently her mother is some sort of businesswoman and an inspirational speaker. Millie comes from a filthy rich family. And Danny tells my parents about all sorts of vacations he and Millie would take once they were married on her mother's penny. It was disgusting to hear, honestly, and it became pretty clear that Danny was only marrying Millie for her money, and not because he loved her. But that's when my mother revealed that she wanted me to buy Millie an expensive car so that they could impress her. It would make her more likely to say yes to Danny when he asked her to marry him next week. They even talked about me and how I would definitely say yes to buying a car. After all, there was no way that I was ready to move out just yet. Yeah, joke's on them. I've already saved enough money and spent it on the apartment. I quickly retreated back inside my room. I was seething. What I overheard has only made me angrier. Sure, I'll leave them behind soon, but I wanted them to get hurt just as much as they hurt me. And it was this hurt and anger that made my brain come up with an excellent revenge plan to teach my ungrateful family a lesson. So today my mother asked me what my decision was, and I assured her that I would buy Millie a new car. This made them very happy with me for the first time ever in my life, and my mother even patted my back, telling me that I had made the right choice and that I would not regret it. All the while, I was concocting a revenge plan in my head. My parents have no idea what's coming for them. After all, I've only agreed to buy a new expensive car for Millie, not pay for it myself. Update number 3. Hey guys, it's Mary again. So, a few days ago, I overheard my family discussing how they wanted me to buy an expensive car so that they could give it to my brother's girlfriend to impress her, so she would be more likely to say yes when he asked her to marry him. I'd spent hours thinking about plans to hurt my parents like they had hurt me. In the end, I realized that all they had ever cared about was their golden child and their money. I've never mattered to them, so the best way to get back at them would be to hurt Danny and their finances. And that's exactly what I plan to do. I've come up with an excellent plan to get back at them for this, and I've begun implementing it. After all, I only had a week to do so because my brother is proposing in just a few days. I went to an expensive car showroom. After all, my parents really wanted to impress Millie, right? And how impressive is an expensive car, you ask? I looked around and came across a really great model that I'm sure Millie would love. I tell the salesperson that I was interested in it, and we went over all of its features, and now that a car has been secured, all I needed was my parents' credit card to pay for it. After all, I've only agreed on buying an expensive car for Millie and not paying for it. I never clarified to them that it was always going to be them who would pay for it, but that's not my headache. Then I went home in search of my parents' credit card PIN. I took my mom shopping in the guise of needing a nice dress for when my brother was planning on asking Millie to marry him. She had been in a great mood with me ever since I agreed to pay for the car. So she readily said yes, and I chose a nice dress that was expensive enough, but when we were paying for it, I pretended not to have my credit card. So she happily paid for the dress, and I peeked at her PIN in the process. So now I have everything to financially ruin my parents. Now, when the day arrives and when my brother proposes to Millie, I will go to the dealership and get that new car for Danny's new girlfriend with my parents' money. And I'll just surprise her. When my parents find out that they're in debt, it'll be too late. All I need to do is hide their phones so they don't get messages about the purchases before I'm ready to reveal my evil plan. So, when my brother asked me what car I was giving his girlfriend, I just winked and told him that he would be very happy with my choice, and Millie would definitely be impressed. He believed me. I mean, how stupid is he? Now I just have to wait for my brother to ask his girlfriend to marry him. Update number 4. Hey guys, it's Mary, and today I implemented my evil plan to teach my family a lesson after they continuously took me for granted and used me for their own, gains. So I went to the dealership with my parents' credit card and purchased the car that I'd selected, and decided to pay the required down payment. Luckily, my parents had enough, and the rest of the amount was to be paid for installation. Of course, I had also stolen their phone, and they continued to ring, and my brother was probably trying to locate my parents' phone, so when he called me, I told him that I didn't know where their phone was. When I got to the restaurant where he was going to propose, I handed the keys to Danny. He was shocked to see the car key fob, and I just winked at him and went into the restaurant. I handed my parents their phone without saying a word. When my father saw the message of thousands of dollars billed straight from the joint account, he was truly shocked, and all the color drained from his face immediately. My father stood up and screamed at me for stealing his hard-earned money, and that's when I laughed in his face and told him that he was doing the same thing that he demanded that I do. I told them that I already bought an apartment with my savings and did not have any left, so I bought the car with their money. It's not my fault that it caused them to go into debt. Both my parents get very angry after that, screaming at me in front of everyone. Even Danny and his precious girlfriend, and they accuse me of knowingly misunderstanding them, which of course I did. They screamed at me that I was a disappointment and they regretted having me, which was not really a shocker. So I just turned towards Millie and told her everything. About how my parents only wanted to impress her so she would marry Danny. And she laughed at that and said she didn't care, especially now that she and Danny has a brand new car, which really shocked me. My parents didn't like that I was exposing them to Millie, so my mom threw her champagne on me and I decided it's time to leave. When it hit me in the face, I wiped my face and left them crying over what they made me do. However, I was stuck by the corner just to overhear what happens next. My father tells Danny to return the vehicle, and Danny just scoffs and said that he's already given the gift to Millie and that it was disrespectful to take the gift back. My parents had been slack-jawed at that. They tried to persuade them, but Danny is adamant and refuses to give the vehicle up. He grabbed Millie's hand and walked out on my parents, leaving them in tears and so much debt. So it turns out that my brother really doesn't care for my parents either. I could not have predicted that in a million years, I was thinking that they would get a scare and simply return the car. But this outcome is even better. Final update. Update number 5. Hey guys, it's Mary again, just one last time. It's been 2 months since I got an expensive car from my brother's girlfriend with my parents' money as revenge. I thought I would catch you up on everything that's happened since. My father filed a case against his golden child for stealing from him when Danny refused to give the car back so that they could get the money back. They're currently fighting a legal battle that I really don't care about. I would have waited to tell you guys about the conclusion of the case, but I truly just don't care who wins. All I care about is that they're wasting away their money on lawyers right now. On that note, Danny and Millie are getting married. I guess the car impressed her and she agreed to marry him. Danny immediately left my parents' house after they got the car, and he hasn't returned or talked to our parents as far as I know. My parents have tried to get in contact with him, but I'm a difficult woman to catch. I've been living in the city about an hour away from my parents on my own for these past 2 months, and I blocked my parents even. I gotta say, living alone is great. I no longer have to watch people in their 50s appreciate their almost 30-year-old son for doing the bare minimum. That's the best part about owning my own place. My parents don't seem to be happy, though. They once showed up at my office screaming at me for ruining their life. I told them that I was hoping that they would just give the car back, but it was their son who stole it from them. My mother was especially angry because she had done so much to raise me, and this is how I paid them back. I almost laughed in her face at that, but I resisted the urge. I just called security to throw them out because they were creating such a scene. That's the only contact I've had with my family since that night. I only learned about the court case from my mother's sister, who absolutely loves gossip.